the beginning of the Humboldt Kolleg, as you know, and we have distinguished participants who would like to welcome us here. For those who do not know, we are in a historical place. History goes back to omnibus and things like that. I should mention also that the first Greek university was in Corfu, as Ionian Academy, and oops. And later on, I think, unfortunately, it was closed, and all the professors moved to Athens to strengthen the University of Athens. This was a rather bad moment. Of course, the good thing was that the Ionian Islands were joining Greece. And the Ionian University started in the 80s, more or less plus or minus 1-2 years, when we started our activities here with summer schools and conferences and so on. To not tell you long stories, it was around 2006 when things matured and we established the European Institute of Sciences and Applications, and the founding members were the municipality of Corfu and my university, the National Technical University. Since then, have been added several institutions, the biggest universities, the most prestigious universities and institutes of Europe. We are 24 in the number now. 24, and among them is CERN. A huge branch is German. We have all the prestigious universities of Germany, since it is a German day today, plus Max Planck's and DESI and things like that, plus whatever you can imagine in Europe. And we are very happy that also we have the Ionian University among us. So this is how it goes. This particular event is a Humboldt Kolleg. Humboldt is the biggest foundation sponsoring, German foundation sponsoring fellowships. They provide around 800 fellowships and awards to everybody from all over the world in science and humanities. So we are very happy that we are sponsored by them. In return, we made an excellent scientific program. So some of us, 7 I noticed, I remember this morning, 4 they are already Humboldt winners. We have 2 kinds of volunteers, the ordinary and those who got the prize. And 4 winners among us, and Professor List that I introduced you before, and Patricia and myself, we took the initiative to produce this Humboldt Kolleg this time. So we're very happy about that. Also, we are honored from the presence of members of the Parliament and the President of the University, of the Humboldt Society, and Honorary Council of Germany. So all they would like to say a few words, and I start with Mr. Gigas, member of the Parliament, representative of Greece, with the Party of New Democracy. Thank you very much. Well, it's not necessary. So I feel very honored to be here today, in front of you, distinguished scientists from all over the world, I assume. The Humboldt Society is a well-known one, and we are very proud to have you here in Corfu, and generally to have here in Corfu scientists to work together, to exchange scientific knowledge, to interact,
islands. Here in Corfu, this historic venue, thank God, happens many of these conferences. But as you see, we need to improve a little bit our infrastructure. And we are looking forward to it in the few years to come. Since you are here in Corfu, I urge you to visit around to see the beauties of the island. It's a beautiful island, it's a historic island. Many civilizations, I mean, from 3,000, 4,000 years ago, were in this island. And please find some time to visit this island. And who knows, maybe some years in the future to come here again for your holidays. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, we are very proud to have you here. I wish you a very fruitful conference to promote your science, and I hope to visit us again. Thank you very much.
Mr. Abdulhamidis, a member of the parliament, also from the... Yeah, I have to translate a little bit. Thank you for your English.
Good morning. Welcome to Αγαπητές κυρίες και αγαπητοί κύριοι συνέδροι.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear ladies and gentlemen.
Η παρουσία σας στο συνέδριο με τίτλο «Βαντική γεωμετρία, θεωρία πεδίου και βαρύτητας».
Well, your presence in the conference entitled Quantum Geometry, Field Theory and Gravity,
που διοργανώνεται στο πλαίσιο του Περινού Ινστιτούτου Φυσικής Στοιχειωδών Σωματιδίων και Βαρύτητας της Κέρκυρας 2019,
which is organized in the framework of the Summer Institute of Physics of Elementary Particles and Gravity of Corfu 2019. This is what we do.
Το νησί στο οποίο μεταλαμπαδεύτηκε μέσα από...
No, I forgot to say that it's honoring our island.
Και τους συμπατριώτες μας, Νικόλαο Θεοτόκη, Ευγένιο Βούλγαρη, Καραντινό και άλλους.
Yeah, this is a place where science came through the Ionian Academy that I mentioned before, through our compatriots Theotokis, Bulgaris, Karandinos, and others.
Το πνεύμα του ευρωπαϊκού διαφωτισμού και του ορθού λόγου.
Yeah, they established the I don't remember the name in English. Όχι το διαφωτισμό.
Η παρουσία σας είναι ένα σημαντικό γεγονός για το νησί μας.
Yeah, your presence is a very important fact for our island.
Αφού με τις εργασίες σας διευρύνετε την ανθρώπινη γνώση,
Since with your work you enlarge the knowledge, the human knowledge.
Από τις ασθενείς αλληλεκδράσεις μέχρι την κλίμακα Planck.
From the Electroweak scale up to Planck scale. I hope you understand too what it is.
Μια διεύρυνση η οποία θα μας βοηθήσει να επανακαθορίσουμε τη θέση μας στο χώρο και το χρόνο.
So this enlargement, we hope it will help us to understand better our place in space and time.
Ένας επανακαθορισμός που ελπίζω να ευαισθητοποιήσει και εμάς τους πολιτικούς.
So we hope that these considerations they will help also the politicians
για το πώς αντιλαμβανόμαστε τα πράγματα
on how we should understand what is going on
σε σχέση με την χρηματοδότηση, τη βασική έρευνα και την προστασία του περιβάλλοντος.
in particular with respect to the financing science.
Ελπίζω οι εργασίες του συνεδρίου να είναι γόνιμες, συνδυαζόμενες με μια ευχάριστη διαμονή στο νησί μας.
So increases our work to be fruitful and to be also accompanied with a nice stay in our island. Thank you very much. We have also Mr. Bianchi from Kinal to tell us a few more words in
Γιώργο, για το καποδίστρο πες το κάτω.
Αγαπητοί συνέδροι, dear participants,
ως νομικός ελάτρης της θεωρητικής σκέψης και αντίληψης,
as jurist and lover of theoretical
αποδέχτηκα με χαρά την πρόσκληση της Ευρωπαϊκής Επιτροπής του Συνεδρίου για ένα σύντομο χαιρετισμό.
I accepted with great pleasure the invitation of the organizing committee for a brief welcome.
Γι' αυτό και δεν σας κρύβω πως άσκε δεν έχω εντρυφήσει διεξοδικά στον τομέα των θετικών επιστημών, ομολογώ πως αυτό που με έχει συναρπάσει από μικρός στους δρόμους της φυσικής ήταν η φανταστική απλότητα που διαθέτω.
So although I'm not an expert, I was always fascinated by the fact from my childhood that in physics everything is embodied in simple laws of physics and simplicity.
Μια απλότητα που μοιάζει να διέπει και τον ίδιο τον κόσμο μας.
This is a simplicity which seems that governs also our world.
Απ' την άλλη, ως πολιτικός πλέον, κατάλαβα πως θεμελιώδη έννοια της πολιτικής είναι η ισχύ, όπως θεμελιώδη έννοια της φυσικής είναι η ενέργεια.
On the other hand, as a politician now, I understood that the fundamental notion of the political of the politics is power, as fundamental notion in physics is energy.
Η μελέτη των θετικών επιστημών με σκοπό την βαθμική κατανόηση του κόσμου δεν θα μπορούσε αλλά να είναι πολύ σημαντική για την παιδεία ενός ανθρώπου, ο οποίος κοιτάζει πέρα από το κέρδος και την ανταγωνιστικότητα.
So it seems to me that the study of sciences with a target to go deeper in understanding the world is very important for the education of a person who looks not only for just earning money and competing.
Ελπίζω η παρουσίαση των θεμάτων του συνεδρίου σας να διεγείρει το ενδιαφέρον των πολιτών.
Yeah, I hope that the topics of your conference will trigger the interest of all our citizens,
Να διευρύνουν τους ορίζοντες τους,
so as to enlarge their views,
αλλά και για να υιοθετήσουν τη λογική των θετικών επιστημών της ζωής τους, την απλότητα, τον κανόνα και τον νόμο.
so as to take as part of their logic, the logic of science in their life, and to see the simplicity of the rules as in science.
Αυτό άλλωστε είναι και σύμφωνα με το στίχημα της επιστήμης, σύμφωνα με τον Αϊνστάιν.
So, with question mark is if this is the bed of science according to Einstein.
Thank you very much.
So, εσείς πρέπει να φύγετε. Okay, so we have still a few more minutes. So I would like, first of all, to ask the representative of the municipality of Corfu. Unfortunately, the mayor is in Athens today, and my friend Dimitris Metalinos is the president of the council, and he would like also to welcome you with a brief speech.
Good morning. Welcome in Corfu for the Deutschsprechende. Herzlich willkommen in Corfu. Sehr große Ehre für uns. It's an honor for us that we are here. I just spoke with our new elected mayor, Mrs. Meropidreu. She's in Athens, with the other two mayors of the island. And this is very important. First of all, we have to congratulate Professor Zupanos, a Corfu international scientist. It's an honor for us that he is working as a professor in one of the best universities we have in Greece. But he was also a member of the council of the Ionian University, as he said before, the first Greek university, which was established by a British who was Philhellene, but he became also Christian Orthodox because he loved the culture and civilization of that island. Frederick Dimitrios Guilford, the Lord, and he made not a British university, but a Greek university. It's very important. 1824, with Greek language, with saints, patron saints, protectors of that university. That's something that we need and we don't know. As a member also, personally, of the Ionian University, it's very great that you come in the birthplace of Kapodistrias. Someone said that we are the birthplace of John Kapodistrias, a great politician who worked for 200 years for a united Europe of the people and the nations. This is very important that you come here because you come in the birthplace, Greece, of democracy, but the birthplace also of the sciences. And that's very important because we forget, and we have always a complex about Europe, and we speak always about enlightenment, Aufklärung. The French Enlightenment, that's very significant in our history. I'm a historian. But we know the enlightenment of classical Greece. Something that we lose, and we try to find again freedom, sovereignty, and all that stuff that we know. For that reason, we congratulate you. We are a new local government, and for that reason we work together to show to the people that this conference is very important for us. And believe me, we thank you that you are here. It's a great honor for a small island like Corfu. Hopefully next year you have the mayor also here, and we build and we make better. Have progress and success in your sources, and we need your sources. Thank you very much.
The Council of Germany in Corfu to welcome you.
Your Honours, members of the Greek Parliament, Mr. Chairman of the City Council, dear participants of the conference, I welcome you at the Corfu 2019 Summer Institute on Elementary Particle Physics and Gravity. My good friend, Professor Georgios Zupanos, managed once again to gather you on our beautiful island. I consider it is a great honor for our island that scientists of your grandeur every year find the time to visit and exchange opinions at this scientific workshop. However, apart from recognizing your scientific grandeur, I consider you as ambassadors. Ambassadors of the cities and the regions you come from. I see that there is the potential to develop a huge network for the exchange of experience and knowledge between the cities and regions. I believe that this enormous potential should be exploited by all sides in order to exchange experiences and create synergies between them. The cities you come from still have the same problems or have already solved problems similar to them our own cities and the regions are facing or have faced. The cities and the regions can develop their own diplomacy and create relationships of synergy where necessary. Let the so-called town twinning schemes leave the typical process of visiting delegations and become substantial for the exchange of ideas and solutions. Therefore, I suggest special teams of extroversion and openness to be established in the municipalities or regions, which will every year coordinate, evaluate, and estimate the cost for their actions, and present every year the results of these activities at the municipal and regional councils for approval. The cities of our Europe, the cities of the world, the cities you come from are waiting for us to knock on their doors. Let's begin diplomacy of the cities and regions. I am convinced that both the new Secretary General of the region and the new Mayor have realized the dynamic of your effort and they will stand alongside you and will be your supporters. Being a Corfu, as well as in my capacity as the Consul of Germany on Corfu, I would like to particularly thank the Humboldt University, as well as all other universities and research institutions, which help every year this magnificent conference. Dear friend Georgios, dear participants of the conference, I congratulate you for your scientific achievements and wish you success in your conference.
Last but not least is Professor Emeritus Klamaris, who is the president of the society, the Humboldt Society. Unfortunately, the members of the panel, they have to leave. They told us early enough there is something very important, another important meeting. And Professor Klamaris will talk in Deutsch, and our distinguished academician, Professor Dieter List, with his simplicity, will serve as a translator.
As the president of the Greek Humboldt Society, I welcome you cordially here in Corfu, and I'm very glad to be here to greet you.
Also, mit besonderer wissenschaftlicher und ehrlicher Freude erlaube ich es mir, Sie als Teilnehmer dieses wichtigen Kongresses herzlich zu begrüßen.
It's my great pleasure and honor to welcome you all as scientists here to this conference.
Diese Insel startet mit der europäischen Kultur und Aufklärung seit der Antike bis heute eine enge Verbindung.
This island has many connections with the European history and also with the European Enlightenment, starting from the ancient times until today.
Zugleich möchte ich die Initiatoren und die Organisatoren dieser Tagung herzlich gratulieren.
At the same time, I'd like to thank the organizers and the initiators of this conference.
Das griechische Humboldt Club hat 250 Mitglieder, die fast alle Wissenschaften und Fachrichtungen vertreten.
The Greek Humboldt Society has about 250 members who represent all possible branches of science and research.
Angesehene Wissenschaftler sind Mitglieder unserer Clubs, darunter
members of this club, and among them also Honorable Professor Zupanos.
Mitglied unseres Clubs ist auch Frau Professor Benaki, ehemalige Präsidentin des griechischen Parlaments und Präsidentin der griechischen Akademie.
Also member is Professor Benaki, a member of the Greek Parliament, or former member of the Academy.
Die Tatsache, dass die Kollegen unseres Humboldt Clubs alle Wissenschaften vertreten, hat als Folge, dass unser Club viele verschiedenartige Veranstaltungen organisiert.
The fact that members of the Humboldt Club represent all possible branches of science has the effect that there are many events in all possible directions.
Zum Beispiel im Mai dieses Jahres haben wir eine erfolgreiche Veranstaltung in Bezug auf das Buch Faust und Helena, eine deutsch-griechische Faszination zur Geschichte der Autorin Frau Claudia Schmöter organisiert.
This May there was an event, or there was a conference on a topic in the history about Faust and Helena, and yeah, maybe you have to repeat.
Claudia Schmöters.
Claudia Smellers.
Als Helena in diesem Buch ist natürlich die bekannte schöne Helena gemeint.
Helena is of course the beautiful woman of Helena.
Meine Damen und Herren, in diesem Jahr feiert man das 250. Geburtsjubiläum von Alexander von Humboldt.
As you know, this year we are celebrating the 250th anniversary of Alexander von Humboldt.
Beide Brüder von Humboldt haben das Geistesleben und das akademische Leben in Europa geprägt.
Both brothers of Humboldt were very influential for the educational life in Europe.
Das Motto, die Einheit der Forschung und der Lehre, wird wichtig und muss immer die Funktion der Universitäten führen.
The unity of research and education always has to be the guiding principle of universities.
Alexander von Humboldt ist am 14. September 1769 geboren.
Alexander von Humboldt was born on the 17th of September 1740. 1769.
Also folgendes. Hatte wie kaum ein anderer mit reiner Forschung in ihrer Allgemeinheit befasst.
As almost nobody else, he did research, but from a very general point of view.
Es ist also nicht von ungefähr, dass die berühmte Schweizerische Zeitung Neue Zürcher Zeitung in ihrer gestrigen Ausgabe zwei große Seiten für Humboldt enthält.
Obviously, not an accident that the great newspaper, Neue Zürcher Zeitung, had a big article about Humboldt 2 days ago.
Der Titel des Artikels ist Ein Mann, der alle Grenzen sprengte und folgt Untertitel. Kaum ein Forscher ist so bekannt wie Alexander von Humboldt.
The title of the article is The Man Who Goes Beyond on Limits, and the subtitle is Nobody else is, or almost nobody else is as known as Alexander von Humboldt.
Verfasser dieses Artikels ist Professor Oliver Kubrick an der Universität Bern, der Mitherausgeber der in diesem Jahr herausgegebenen sämtlichen Werke von Alexander von Humboldt ist.
Also of this article is Professor Lübrich from Bern, who also published a complete volume about Alexander von Humboldt this year.
Meine Damen, meine Herren, wie man sagte, es gibt einen ideologischen und methodologischen Kampf, also Streit zwischen Fakultäten und Wissenschaften, wie Kant
ideological and methodological fight between faculties about yeah.
Unabhängig davon, ob ein Streit bestände zwischen den Wissenschaften,
independent if there is a fight among the sciences,
zum Beispiel auf der Basis von naturwissenschaftlichen Kriterien, hat man versucht, den wissenschaftlichen Charakter der Rechtswissenschaft abzusprechen.
on the basis of scientific criteria, and tried to explore also the basis of the science of law.
Die Forschung hat in allen Wissenschaften dieselbe Zielrichtung.
Research always has the same goal in all branches of science,
Nämlich die Wahrheit zu finden und neue Wege zu öffnen.
namely to find the truth and also to explore new paths.
Unabhängig davon, ob man von einer Einheit der Forschung sprechen kann,
Independent, if I can speak about unity of research,
die wichtigste Aufgabe der Forschung ist dieselbe.
the most important task of research is always the same.
Und man muss die Zusammenhänge finden.
It has to find the connections.
Selbst Werner Heisenberg hat gesagt, aber die Ahnung eines großen Zusammenhangs
Also, Werner Heisenberg has told us even the idea of a big connection
bleibt auch für uns die treibende Kraft der Forschung.
is also for us the driving force of research.
Alexander von Humboldt gilt als der letzte Universitätsgelehrte.
Alexander von Humboldt is known to be as the last universal researcher.
Der grundsätzlich alle möglichen Formen des Wissens noch miteinander verbunden haben.
Who was able to connect all possible directions of science and research.
Man muss darüber verstehen, dass Alexander von Humboldt auch auf die Einheit der Forschung glaubte.
One has to understand that Alexander von Humboldt was indeed believing in the unity of research.
Weil eben ein fächerübergreifender Forscher gewesen war.
Because he was a researcher who was branching over all possible directions.
Aber auch wenn man nicht die Einheit der Forschung vertritt,
But even if you do not represent the unity of science and research, longer term programs, and I think this is really wonderful idea, and has to be very grateful to George. It's really impressive, and I know not always a very easy task to build it up here, but I think at the end it will be very successful and very nice. So I think with this I can end, and I'm happy now to start with my talk. So the title of my talk, which I like to present now, is Gravity, Infinite Distance, and Geometric Flow. And the work I'm telling you about is joint work with Untitled and Humboldt, and there's also some work with Alex Ihanias and Severin, was here, and Alex was, yes, Alex is in the room, but in any case, which will hopefully appear very soon. So the question is about quantum gravity, and one particular question is whether one can also ask what is not possible in quantum gravity. Quantum gravity is a very complex theory, but maybe one can exclude also certain effective theories which appear to be consistent from the lower energy point of view, but cannot be consistently uplifted to quantum gravity in the ultraviolet at high energies. So the question about these Nobel theorems is basically which infrared consistent quantum field theories cannot be embedded into a UV complete quantum gravity theory. And this is what is also known nowadays to be the so-called swampland program initiated by Oguri and Wafa in the year 2006. So it can be nicely depicted in this picture here. In the UV, say 10 dimensions, you have quantum gravity or string theory, and then you have to go down, you compactify, and then you get a vast amount of theories in the infrared, say in 4 dimensions, which are known to build up the so-called string landscape. But from the low energy point of view, there are many more possible theories. Presumably, the landscape is measured 0 in this bigger space of theories, which is called the swampland. So the swampland are those effective theories which cannot be uplifted to a consistent quantum gravity theory in the UV. And the question which I want to ask basically today, whether certain gravity theories can be themselves be in the swampland. This question may sound a little bit weird because in the original idea of the swampland is to ask what kind of effective gauge theories or meta theories belong to the swampland. But the question was not so much posed before about gravity itself. And in this context, there are a few new swampland conjectures. For example, about higher spin theories, about massive spin 2 theories or massive gravity. This is not what I will talk about today. This is something we explored with Daniel Kleber and Evan Paiti end of last year. But today I want to talk more, at least at the beginning, whether or in what sense anti-de Sitter space, which is known in principle to be a good vacuum in gravity or in quantum gravity, can be also in the swampland. The swampland idea is based on several conjectures, most notably on the weak gravity conjecture, and I will explain this in a minute in more detail. Another related conjecture is the so-called infinite distance conjecture, which will play an important role in my talk. And this basically is saying that if you have a parameter space, a moduli space of theories, there's always unavoidably an infinite tower of massless or almost massless states. It's scaled in the following way. And if you go on some boundary of the moduli space, so if you make certain parameters phi very large, so if delta phi is very big, then this tower of states, which is coupled to gravity, the masses of them scale exponentially with e to the minus some constant times delta phi. So if delta phi is large, it is obvious that the masses of these states go to 0. And the important statement here is also that these are not 1 or 2 states only, but the tower consists out of an infinitely many of those masses, of almost massless states. As I said, this is closely related to the gravity conjecture. And basically, also the gravity conjecture tells us if you have U1 gauge theory, taking the limit of very decoupling, taking the limit of the U1 gauge coupling to 0, that this limit is also at infinite distance. So there's a tower of scale of states which scales like G times M Planck. This is a so-called magnetic version of the gravity conjecture. So this is depicted here. So there's an infinite tower of states above M, which means basically that the effective field theory description breaks down above the cut of M. In other words, the limit of taking G, the gauge coupling constant, very small, belongs to the swampland in quantum gravity because the effective field theory description breaks down. Often, but not always, one can identify what are the responsible states, and very often they're given by so-called internal Kaluza-Klein modes. So in this case, the gauge couplings are inversely proportional to some radius of some compact space. In the tower of state, go just like M over R. And if you go to the right field variable, which is canonically normalized, in this case phi is given by the log of R. You see that we precisely have the scaling behavior which I have advertised in the last slide. And for big phi or large R, you get an infinite power of very light Kaluza-Klein modes. So now I want to ask whether for ADS backgrounds some similar phenomenon could happen. And the question is the following, basically. I'd like to ask So if we consider ADS vacuum and quantum gravity, where we consider the cosmological constant, the negative cosmological constant, as a parameter of the theory, we want to ask the question, what is happening in the limit where lambda goes to 0. And in this context, we have now formulated the so-called ADS distance conjecture, ADC. Namely, we claim that in the limit of lambda to 0, there's always an infinite tower of states with mass kn, which behaves in the following way. These masses are proportional to lambda to some power alpha, and this power alpha is a constant, which typically should be positive and should be also of order 1. So, if this is true indeed, if you take lambda to be very small, the mass scale is also very small, and basically, again, the effective field theory description would break down, or in other words, you could say ADS vacuum is very small, very small lambda, infinitesimally small lambda belong to the swamplands. So this is the same picture which I have shown you before, but now the relevant color scale is the cosmological constant lambda itself. There's also a strong version of this distance conjecture, and states that for supersymmetric ADS vacuum, the constant alpha can be computed and is precisely equal to 1/2 such that lambda or the masses are connected precisely by this relation. Again, now you can try to check whether the conjecture is true or not, and indeed it is satisfied for many known backgrounds of string and M theory, for example, like ADS5 times S5, because in this case, we know what is going to happen if the cosmological constant of the ADS factor becomes very small. You get a tower of Kaluza-Klein modes coming from the other factor of space-time from the S5, and there go precisely, the masses go precisely to 0, and you take lambda to be small. But the conjecture is that this should happen not only for this example, but this phenomenon should happen in general. So how, let me very briefly go through one possible way to derive it. Recall that the swampland distance conjecture states that if you have scalars with a certain kinetic energy, one can associate a distance in field space, a distance delta in field space, to a path with parameter tau, so it's the scalars phi depend on some parameter tau. The distance can be computed with this kind of standard formula, and then indeed the conjecture again states that there's an infinite tower of states scaled with this data the way I have shown you before. So basically what we want is now we want to generalize in a particular way this formula, which was first derived for moduli spaces, say for Calabi-Yau compactifications. So as I said, the distance conjecture was first applied to internal moduli fields, and now we want to apply the distance conjecture to the space-time metric itself, first without any reference to the internal space at all. So we want to consider a family of metrics. So we consider the space of metrics where we say start with some given background G mu 0, and then consider a family of metrics. Therefore we consider some particular variation. And the associated distance in the space of metrics now can be computed by a similar formula. It's given by a formula this. So you consider the derivatives of the metrics with respect to the parameter tau, which is the path along you want to determine the distance. You have to correct it, or you have to also multiply by inverse volume factor. And using this formula, you can also again define the distance in the space of background metrics. So now we want to consider one particular variation of the metric, namely so-called binary scalings. So you start from some given metric, and then you multiply the metrics by the known y factor e to the 2 tau, and this defines me the infinite family of metrics G mu tilde of tau. And the associated distance is a formula I have shown you before, can be quite easily computed. The associated distance is basically being proportional to tau, or maybe say better, more precisely, between the difference between some initial value of tau and some final value